So this video popped up the other day, and it's the Whatever podcast. I know, the Whatever podcast. For some reason, it's still a thing. I don't know why. Big Papa Fascist was once again on the show, this time to debate a communist chick. So I thought this would be kind of interesting since I myself am not a communist. I'm also not a socialist. I would consider myself a social democrat. I ultimately still think capitalism with markets is a beneficial economic system. I just think that more caps, regulations, and whatnot are very, very needed right now. So I am not a communist. I'm not a socialist. I'm curious to see what this girl's going to say. And then maybe we'll just, I don't know, we'll see what happens, you know?
Sorry, go ahead. You said interest in communism?
Communism, but also like some traditional values.
Communism?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Or
You're
no,
not a
well,
communist.
Well, you said, okay, so.
Well, I don't, that's why I say socialist, because I'm still like full doing my deep dive into communism. But I think if communism worked how it was actually supposed to work and not how like we've had the Red Scare and how people in history have painted out communism to be, then yeah, I think communism would be a great concept.
Yeah, this is just the meme. This is just the, yeah, all those other times failed, but you know what? Communism would work if I did it. It's just the meme.
Stateless society?
To a degree, it's just everyone helping everyone having homes, everybody being able to like have some kind of food, water, shelter, clothes. Like, I feel like the recklessness that you've been kind of referring to is part of it is like people like stealing not because they want to steal and because they want to be reckless, but they want to resell the stolen merch so that they could buy their baby diapers or afford formula. And
I mean, maybe, yeah, but like when you're talking about everybody having their basic needs met, this is something that can still be achieved within capitalism. I mean, why can't we advocate for stronger social safety nets along with capitalism? A lot of the times people like this girl who talk about communism or talk about socialism, what it really comes from is a place of discontentness with the current economic system.
so I agree to a degree some of the reckless behavior is going up, but I think also part of that is there's people that do want monogamous, the nuclear family thing, but we can't afford it in this economy the way like inflation's going. It's like there was an article that was like, millennials don't want this, they want to downsize, they wanted this. We would like marriage, we would like, not everyone, but the government and society hasn't set us up like that. So I mean, if you're into this whole procreation thing.
Yeah, so see, like what I was saying, a lot of the times that you hear people talking about communism and socialism or anarchy even, it comes from a place of being woefully dissatisfied with the current system. And that's pretty much what this girl's saying right here, is that millennials want to have a family and do this sort of traditional lifestyle, but it's too expensive. And that's true. These are some real issues. But again, no, communism, socialism would not fix this.
And like that's like very important to you. Wouldn't communism like make sense because everyone would have everything they need, and therefore we could focus on procreation?
So the problem with this is you're making a materialist argument.
Okay.
So let me just walk you through it. What you're saying is, right now we have the best standard of living that we've ever had in history. There's more materialism available to anybody than there ever has been. We have cell phones and we have big screen.
Corporations are way too powerful. All the rules, regulations, and laws will come down on the tiny little guy that, yeah, sorry, this is another total misconception that like these giant corporations are able to lobby everything away. You can look at meta-analyses of policies that have been passed over the past several years, and overwhelmingly the policies that are passed are policies that the American public support and sometimes the corporations support. But there are also policies that the American public does not support, corporations do support them, and the corporations do not get their way. This idea that like lobbying is this uncontrollable thing that any big company can just come over and change every law, it's not true. Sorry. What's stronger social safety nets would help make it easier to live? You can start including higher minimum wage. You can start introducing easy to access food. You can start providing some kind of easy to access, maybe low income housing, but something that's more accessible for everybody. Obviously, I'm not a policymaker. I'm not here to introduce a bunch of policies, and if we do this and this and this, But there are obviously ways to improve the standard of living for people without burning down the entire economic system we have right now, which would result in a ton of death, blood, and just unnecessary violence.
TVs, and we have these great cameras, and we have all this electricity and these light bulbs and all the clothes and all the new cars and all the this and all of that. If we just added more materialism, wouldn't people have children?
I think she's saying if we evened it out.
I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking just like the minimum wage.
Yeah, but right. But all these people have all of these things already intact. They already have the houses. They already have the money. They already have the everything. They're still not having the children.
A lot of them do.
They do. And you want to know who has the children? The people who don't have that. The poor people. The people who have no money. People who have no housing. The people who live poor. Those are the ones that have the most amount of children. Poor people overwhelmingly have more children than all the rest of the segments of society.
A lot of that.
So what? There's a bunch of reasons for this. One, if you're living in really poor circumstances, there's evolutionary reasons as to why you might have more kids, because you have a higher chance of one of those infants dying. So that's the first thing. That's why in third world countries, you see higher rates of childbirth, because there's also a much higher rate or much higher likelihood that one or more of those children will die early on in their lives. So that's the first thing. Second of all, contraception access. You might not be able, or if you don't have the money, if you're really poor, you might not have access to contraception. If you're really poor for your whole life, you may have not had proper sex education to even know how to adequately use contraception. And of course, there's just the factor that if you're poor, you don't have a job, and you're bored, you might end up just having sex a lot. But for him to suggest that more material goods won't benefit people is ridiculous. The reason people have more kids where they don't have as much material goods is because the lack of material goods means the likelihood of one of their children dying is significantly higher.
Has to do with lack of resources, though, which could be government funded.
So then it can't be a material answer. So it can't be a material answer to my question of when you say, if you want people to reproduce, shouldn't you give them more material means? Like, well, every time I look at the people who have the least amount of material means, they reproduce the most.
Not even material means. Well,
this guy does not understand things at all. So do you think if just you made everybody poor, they would all just start having more kids? Really?
That I don't understand how they have the most material means, but they're also the poorest, because I'm not talking about material means. I'm just talking about
the least. I said the least. So they have the least amount of material means, and they still reproduce the most, even though they have the least amount of materialism. So that's not going to help me with my goal.
Okay.
So what you want, though, is when you say...
No, because what your goal really is for people to reproduce and have families, not just reproduce, have a baby that dies the first year of life. So then what you really would want is people having kids that grow up to be healthy, functioning adults.
On a fair allocation of resource, I want people to have, I don't even know what you want them to have, because every communist is different. So let's just say, like, I'm going to be maximum charitable as I can possibly be to you. Everyone gets a house, okay? Like, I don't know, a starter home. I'm guessing you don't want everybody to have a mansion, right?
No, everyone, basic house. Everyone has enough house for all their
kids. And they have basic things being taken care of for them, right?
Clothes, water, food, electricity.
Now, the fundamentals to this, the big problem you have with this worldview, is when, even though you think of rights in a different way than I do, using your kind of reasoning for what a right is, do you ever have a right to anybody else's service?
Yes. Yep, you do. You have a right to an attorney. I vote for officials to represent my interests in the government. I have a right to their service. That's what the Constitution says. I vote for my representative, who then provides me with a service and speaks on behalf of my interests. When you call the police, the operator is there on the phone to answer. You have a right to call for help. Do you have a right to the operator's service? Maybe not necessarily, but you have a right to that service at the end of the day. So this notion that, like, you never have a right to anybody else's service, not true.
No.
Well, then communism can't work. And free healthcare can't work. And none of those things can work, because
free healthcare does not mean you don't pay the person. It means that they're paid through something else. And I see people in chat already talking about taxes. I'm okay if there's higher tax rates, if that means easy to access healthcare for everybody. Because if you were paying more in taxes, but then had a public option for healthcare, you would ultimately be saving money at the end of the year, because you wouldn't have such high medical costs.
Because you're saying you don't have a right to the services of others.
I could understand that. And recently, though, I was reading about this village in Italy, and it's a communist village, and around roughly only 30% of them choose to work, and the other 70% just live their lives. So they kind of just live together, whatever, but not everyone works and serves, but doesn't mean that their life is less valuable.
Yeah, but that's a tiny village, right? There's a reason why you only find these examples of tiny villages, because maybe it would work in a tiny village, but the theory of communism, trying to apply that to a country the size of America with our economic system already established, that would be a nightmare. It's not comparable.
Yeah, but the question becomes this. Let's say in some small scales, different communes can work because they always have been able to, right? You can have a bunch of like-minded people start a commune and all of them work towards a common good, no money, no nothing. Nobody's saying that that can't work in a small scale because everybody's agreeing. But on a large scale, when you have people who don't agree, they're like, wait, I don't want to be your doctor.
Doc Venabilis donated $200. You communist idiot. Everything.
Oh man, could you imagine donating $200 to this show?
They say, I'm not doing that shit for you. I'm not going to go open up that guy's heart. I'm not going to fix it. I'm not doing it, right? You don't feel like you can compel him to do it, right? So then he's.
But you are compelling people to do it by paying them usually, right? Compelling makes it sound like you're forcing them, but like if I walk into a business and I give them money to buy a loaf of bread, they do owe me that service then because I have compensated that service. So if you're talking about a surgeon, they could be compensated via payment elsewhere. If they were paid by government or something, then the individual does not need to pay them, but they're still being paid. They are being compelled to do that service, and they're being fairly compensated for it.
going to be able to name his price and your communism doesn't work. That's the big hole. The big hole is that the reason you always see communist countries, which are completely and totally authoritarian, run at the literal barrel of a gun, is because they have to compel people to give their service. And if you're not willing to do that, you can't have communism.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like that's not what I think true communism is. And I'm not saying communism would work in America. I definitely don't think. I mean, maybe one day that would take a lot of whatever, but I don't think we're gonna ever get there, especially in our generation. But I do think that if it happened, it would be like a utopia, which is hard to imagine. Everybody like somehow having their part.
How is this for real? Someone actually unironically up here saying that if we could just embrace communism, we'd be living in this utopia?
Or just making the flow of everything work so everyone can live and choose whether they want to work or not work. But
wait, so in a communist utopia, what would be the
if you want to work, you can work. If you don't, you don't
what
have
about
to.
like, because there's certainly jobs that are currently under capitalism that are undesirable, and I suspect those same jobs would also exist under communism. Like there's some jobs that suck, right, that are dangerous.
Wants to go do the sewer work, in other words, in your communist utopia.
I mean, people get up and do it.
They do it now because they get paid a lot of money. They have a higher incentive than other people who do other industries because
Like,
they're
let's
doing
say
a horrible job, get paid a lot.
Wait, is her idea of communism not including markets? She's failed to give even a decently cohesive explanation as to what she means when she's talking about communism or socialism. Does she think there should be markets even? Yeah, the idea that like you could have 70% of the population not working in a communist society is a joke.
Under communism, you can either be like, would there be like movie stars under communism?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far. What do you
But
mean by
let's say
that?
I want to be a movie star under communism.
Classless and moneyless is communism? Oh, okay, yeah. Then you would never be able to have a functioning society. Sorry. Maybe if you can get rid of class, that's fine. But moneyless society? No, you obviously need to have something of value to keep the economy going. And then if you're talking about getting rid of markets, you have an entirely new problem, which is how do you even determine the value of labor now? Because there are no markets. There is no competition. There's nobody else saying, well, I'll do that labor for this cost. There's no comparison. How do you determine the value of labor if there are no markets? You cannot do it.
And I guess I can ask your opinion on this, but what if you, in the communist utopia that you're speaking about, what if you had to be the line worker? Like, I think that's where it kind of falls apart, right? Because nobody would choose to do that.
I'm personally like a
but
good
it's
sport.
required.
So if it's like if it's kind of like one of those one dies for 1,000, then I personally am probably one of those people that would be
Do
like,
you see
yeah,
what
I
I'm
can
saying?
do it.
Like,
That's like Mao.
But that's
right?
a very rare
so
thing.
Mao goes and he
but
says,
I'm saying there's more people that's got to exist like
he
me.
says
that
this
would
country
eventually...
really needs trenches dug in a big way. It needs some infrastructure work. We have too many of those academics. We don't need them anymore. So all those people who wanted to be academics and were academics, they were the really smart people. He made them dig ditches. Because that's what they needed. That's what they needed in their society for. That's what he said anyway.
Okay.
This is what we need. So you academics, you dumb eggheads, all you people who come up with all these smart ideas, dig ditches.
Yeah, well, dig some holes.
Right. So,
Like,
but the thing is, it's like.
I think it's a little easier to speak in a hypothetical situation, though.
But we're also
like, I know I get you're a good sport, but like, would you actually?
we also live under capitalism, so for us to try to really like rationalize doing these things under communism is crazy because we live with the freedom to like choose.
Right, but that's like speaking
there's
about
other
any-
places like places that have been like remotely like untouched by society, where like they don't clock into jobs and the women have babies, they like someone's a cook, someone's a nurse, someone's a midwife. Like there's societies where that's like no one's forcing this person to like be the nurse or be the medicine man or whatever.
It's weird how a lot of these conversations about communism and socialism ultimately boil down to just wanting to destroy these rigid expectations and roles that people are supposed to fit. And that's another thing where I feel like the miscommunication occurs, like between me and communists, for example, because I can agree with what the lefties are saying here. I agree that it's fucked up that people are expected to fit these roles. You're a man, you must go to work, you must provide, this is what you must do. I agree that that's screwed up. But communism isn't really going to fix that. There would still be negative stereotypes that you'd have to unlearn. There'd still be negative societal discrimination and whatnot. Things would still be problematic. To act as though communism is like this magical fix-all is simply untrue. It's a pipe dream. Yeah, nobody likes being forced into a role. So why don't we work on dismantling those roles and providing stronger social safety nets for people? There you go.
Whatever, but
People
we're
just
speaking
enjoy
from like a
helping
place
other
where
people.
we can go out and like we know there's people who make like $30,000 a month or whatever. We're speaking from like a very of course we wouldn't be able
I have
to
a
like
question
rationalize communism.
for you. Under communism, would someone who requires significant educational achievement, academic achievement, for example, somebody who wants to be a brain surgeon, would they somehow live better under communism than the person that doesn't want to do anything? Or would it would be totally equal? Because then what is the incentive to like, or let's say a physically laborious job, which is damaging to your body, what would be the incentive if you had the option to not work,
Right, that's what I'm
to go spend this time?
Some people just like helping other people.
No, they don't. Sorry. I feel bad for this girl. She seems like she's nice, but she has way too much faith in humanity. Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Is that
And I know
enough
that's like the most
motivation?
cliche. Yeah.
I got the feeling Hunter's issue with communists come from the folks who have absolutely no clue what they're talking about, because everything he said is what they advocate for. No, communism is an end goal. I'm a social democrat, so I want there to be some stronger social safety nets. But it sounds like what this girl's talking about, it doesn't even sound like there'd be markets involved in her system.
It's hard because in this society, like, people want something out of it. I asked my dad, will you go to therapy? He goes, what's in it for me? Like, you know, that like society is, especially in America, like, well, what am I going to get out of it? But I truly believe with my corny little heart that there's people out there that just want to be like, I'll help my neighbor, or, you know,
but the
I'll
thing
do
is,
the right thing.
Then don't they do that now then?
Right, we
What
still have
about
a
it?
choice.
Yeah, but do they do that now? Because if they do that now, then what do you need communism for anyway? If that's just a natural inclination of everybody to do what's nice and neat to everybody.
If more people could afford to do the right thing, I think more people would. But sometimes doing the right thing isn't
Well,
always affordable.
Who can't afford to do the right thing?
Like, not everyone.
What if you can't do the right thing because you have to go to work? Maybe you can't stop and help the old lady find her car because you have to get to work and make your money. At this point, this conversation feels like aimless. It's directionless.
Everyone can afford to like give the homeless man change, or not everyone can like give someone a sweatshirt off their back.
but if you can't afford to give a homeless man change, and so you don't, you haven't done the wrong thing. So the thing is when we're talking about the right thing,
Yeah.
you're saying, I just believe in my heart that basically everybody really wants to do the right thing.
Yes.
Then in capitalism, is everybody basically doing the right
Group
thing?
1 Motorsports donated $200.
How is Big Papa Fascist still not getting this? Like, this girl is giving such basic talking points that are so just non-substantial or anything, and somehow he's still having a difficult time? She just said the reason everybody's not able to do the right thing right now and act on the best of their intentions is because of the affordability of it, is because of the economics.
Yeah, I'm just saying the people's nature shouldn't change between communism and capitalism. What would be the change in the nature?
Survival, yeah.
changes.
Literally, like, I've been homeless before, and when I've
But
been
most people
homeless,
are
my
never homeless.
instinct, that's increasing day by day.
No,
And there's
it's
people that don't even have
decreases.
$500 in their bank account for a rainy day.
Decrease.
I mean, I don't think anyone would survive under current communism in other countries and how we've painted out communism to be. And conflict in the Middle East is different to everybody, you know. I think there's a way that there's weirdly a neutral side. I have friends that are very free Palestine, and I have friends that will like take a bullet for Israel, and I can somehow land in the middle. So
Question for you. So in communism, and look, this is not a topic I'm particularly well versed in, but in communism, let's say nobody wanted to do a certain job.
Okay.
Would there be an authority that would force people to do a certain job?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, right? Like, communist society would entail the absence of private property and social classes, and ultimately money and the state. Communists often seek a voluntary state of self-governance, but disagree on the means to this end. Right, okay. So you would still need some kind of a central body to make some kind of decisions, to decide who's going to do what, to decide who's going to go and help somebody if there's an emergency.
Like, let's say there was a necessary job that just had to be done.
I think by nature, people would eventually see how bad the problem's getting and then bond together to fix it if it really got that bad.
But what if nobody wanted to?
That's just delusional. I wish that the world was this good. I wish that people were this pure-hearted. But it's just not true. Yeah, this girl did not sound like she had a very good understanding of communism. And it seemed like she was really confused like the whole time.
Everybody at this table, basically.
I feel like she only answered that question.
The same question. Right. For obligation and duties, I think that your kind of threshold there is that you don't really think that there's that much in the way of obligation or duty in comparison to kind of the, I don't even know if I can say it, so I'm just not going to, but whatever I would deem like degenerate behavior, right? You don't have any duty. Do you have any duty to not do any form of degenerate behavior? That would be the question.
No, I have absolutely no duty to not act in a way that you randomly decide is degenerate.
Degenerate behavior, that would be the question.
So reasons not to do degenerate shit?
Yeah, and what degenerate means in this is without morals. It means without morals.
Loads.
Yeah, loads of stuff that you should move against.
I mean, reasons why I have those duties, or like, I mean,
okay.
I have godchildren. I don't have much family. Like,
now, if somebody doesn't want to do one of those duties, this is the question: would you make them?
I don't think you can really like make it. You
well,
can be
then
disappointed. You can just like.
Then inside of your paradigm, if we apply the same thing and say, okay, you think people have duties to do this, and then they don't. Well, nothing gets done.
That's
right?
why we call it. That's why I'm calling it a utopia. Because do I think that will actually exist? No. If it was supposed to.
Why then? If you never think it's ever going to exist, then why are you like arguing in favor of this thing if you think it's never even going to happen? Like, at that point, aren't you just being contrarian?
To work the way what the framework is, and not the leaderships and the politics.
Where everybody had to do the horrible job except you, right? Everybody but you.
All right.
No, I feel like I'm the one to do the most horrible job.
Well,
like,
if we did have.
Okay, well, there you guys have it. Big Papa Fascist sitting next to a sex doll, arguing in favor of family values. Very nice.